most of your fishing time. If you've only got like a short period of time to fish, you want to maximise your chances. Now this is extremely important in the winter time, more important than even in the summer, because in the summer the fish are extremely active and they're constantly jumping and moving about and all this kind of thing, so they're all over the place. But in winter, fish tend to gravitate to localised areas, deep spots and all that kind of thing. One example that I'll use is over at Frimley back in the day. There was one chap who fished over there, a chap called Dave Miller, and it was 2 rods only that you could fish, but he always had a third one ready to go, lent up against a tree. Now if he caught a fish from an area in the winter, he would have that fish in the net and he would immediately whack out that rod that was ready back out to the area onto those feeding fish. Now I saw my mate Martin Pick do it the other day. He had like a real good run of fish over in that swim over there. He would get a take, land the fish, and basically as soon as that fish was in the net, he would turn around, retie another rig on, retie his bait on it and get bait back out there, because his idea was he's got like not a huge amount of time to fish, so he wants to maximise that time that he's fishing. He travels a long way. He's thinking, well, I'm happy enough catching one, but I could get another, and sure enough he got another, and he was really working that area up, and it was really good angling to watch. Like as soon as he got one, it's another couple of pouch reels of 10mm baits, kept the feeding activity going. He just kept putting it out there, and he ended up with like 10 fish, something like that. And to watch that kind of angling in action, maximising the time spent on the bank, he was really working it. It was good angling, you know. I'm always learning. Like friends of mine, like I'll watch what they're doing. Oh, what's that? I haven't seen that done before, and they'll explain it. I mean, I see one chap, and he was using the Medusa rig, and I'd never used a Medusa rig, like, and I said, what are you doing? Like, and he showed me and that. And up until then I'd used the Magaliner, I'd done like quite well using the Magaliner over here, but he was catching on this particular method. So I put that on one, I had a 37-pound common, and then it basically just switched all 3 over to that, and I caught several more fish on that method like in the coming weeks. There's a lot of different reasons that people go fishing, but at the end of the day we all want to catch fish, don't we? So it always pays to like just work hard at your fishing, you know. Use a bait and a rig that you know works, get the rods out there, fishing effectively, and then you can chill, have a couple of beers or whatnot with your mates. A lot of the best anglers that I know, you see them constantly working at their fishing, watch them fish, and they're extremely good anglers and they work extremely hard at it. And that's one of the reasons for their success, you know. You just watch them and you think, well, they're getting rewards for the effort that they're putting in, whether it be while they're fishing or the preparation that they're doing. Effort equals reward. Like if you make the effort at your fishing, then you will catch more. Now I see a lot of people turn up on this particular water and other waters. They've got 2 or 3 big buckets of like particle mix and ground bait and pellet and all this kind of thing. There's no point introducing that amount of bait initially. More often than not, I like to call it the 3 days later scenario. Okay, them fish, they've maybe seen that bait's there, you've gone home, and then fish move on to that bait and they absolutely muller it 3 days later. So I mean, last week for example, I turned up and there was a herd of fish, absolute herd of fish, like bubbling out in front of this swim over here. Spoke to a mate of mine, he said, oh yeah, the mate is from the weekend, like whacked out a load of maggots. And then fish was bubbling there on a Wednesday. That bloke had probably put that out there on a Friday, and it took till Wednesday before them fish started feeding on it properly. So my advice would be, if you've got a small amount of time to go fishing, 1 night or 2 nights, just adopt the 1 bite at a time approach. Don't go in too heavy on the bait. By all means, if you start catching them, maybe put a little bit out, keep the feeding activity going, but don't overfeed a swim. If you're here for a while and you've got a fair bit of bait, okay, by all means put it in, but put it in the right amounts just to keep that feeding activity going. My mate Dave Bennett's a real master of it. He uses a boat, and basically he'll bring along like 2 buckets of like mixed particle, hemp, tigers and boilies and all this kind of thing. And he'll keep putting out a boatload, bang on a spot. He's got like markers, he's very precise about his fishing. He's got like markers, little power gun markers on his line and all this kind of thing. And he'll keep putting it out onto a far bank tree marker, so he's marked up his spot on the far bank. He's going out to that spot until he hits that like little bit of elastic and he drops. You catch 1 fish, like basically get it back out there and keep baiting it, but little and often. So he won't put out a huge initial bait in, but by the time he's done his like 2 or 3 nights, he's gone through 2 buckets of munger, as I like to call it. So he's gone through it, but he's used it in the right way. So always bear in mind, don't overfeed a swim. As soon as I got something working, then I'll switch over both rods or all 3 rods onto that particular method that's working, because that's the method on the day, and I'm a real believer in that. For example, with the zigs, fish one on a black, one on a yellow, one on a red. Whatever colour goes, I switch over all 3 to it, because that's the colour on the day or the bait on the day. Never neglect a zig, especially in the winter, because I think a lot of the time them fish are in mid-water, they settle down into an area that they find extremely comfortable, and I think it's quite a rarity on some waters that those fish actually drop down to the bottom. Another one is perseverance. Now, I've fished on like waters, and you might suffer a blank for like several weeks on the trot. You know, you're trying the absolute best. You've got a bait that you know works, you've got a rig that you know works, you're on fish, you know, you're putting like baits and rigs that you know work through showing fish and that, and you just ain't catching. And quite often there's a temptation to chop onto a rig or a bait or something, try different things that you're not quite sure work. I see a mate of mine doing that over here, and eventually he came back to the thing he knew worked, which was like a little chop down pop-up on a bog standard pop-up rig, and that's what he ended up catching on. So you just got to persevere with what you know works. Sometimes we all blank, you know, and like, I mean, my idea is the fish just ain't having it sometimes. You can't force the issue. I mean, like last year on here, mate of mine, he was fishing and he was putting baits right through where the fish were showing, and he weren't catching anything. We eventually determined that they were feeding extremely heavily on the naturals. There was a real bloom of bloodworm. There was bloodworms like that. They were like red worms and like that long and about 3 mil thick, massive. And the fish were gorging on them, preoccupied with them totally. Hopefully that's given you a bit of a help. Like, I mean, there's some things that I think that I do. I mean, I've been carp fishing a good long while now, probably since about 1987 for my sins. I'm not a good angler by any means compared to some of the anglers that I do know. I'm a bit lazy sometimes and that. But there's certain things that I do which I think sometimes catch me the odd fish when all else fails. So I hope that's been of some help to you.